Okay, welcome to the On Your Side podcast. I'm Gary Harper.
And I'm Susan Campbell.
How was the weekend?
It was good.
Was it?
Yeah, relaxing.
Well, every weekend is relaxing, right? I mean,
And full of laundry.
We had great, we had great weather, little football here and there.
Love my Saturday football, love my Sunday football.
My team won. Did your team
Congratulations. No, my Syracuse did not win.
win? No.
But I generally don't expect them to actually win, so it's okay.
Yeah, my team did okay. I won some money.
Congratulations.
Okay, so.
How much?
You know what? I bet very small just to make it interesting.
Just to have a little fun?
Just to have a little fun. So
Okay.
$10 got me $55.
Nice.
So,
a little mad money for the week.
Yeah, it helps here and there, right?
Okay.
A little gas money, I guess you could say.
There you go.
You had a funny story over the weekend.
I did?
Yes.
What was my funny story?
You were making quiche.
Oh, gosh. Well, this is just me trying to get ahead and, plan for meal
Tell everybody
plan.
this story because it is funny.
This was so dumb and it's such a non-problem, but I made 2 quiches, one for dinner and then one to slice up and put in the freezer and have lunches, whenever I needed them. And I woke up the next day and quiche is still sitting on the counter. And you do that thing in your head where you're like, it's fine, right? I could eat eggs that have been sitting out all day. No,
that's the worst thing.
I knew the answer was throw it away, but you still go to Google anyway and be like, how long could I possibly go with eggs and cheese that have not been refrigerated? And the answer is 2 hours.
Right.
So overnight was, a
that's
non-starter.
way past the deadline. And I told you my story. I made lunch for the next day to take to work, and I left it on the counter as well. So what is wrong with us?
I think it means we're too busy and we just need to, take a step back and be able to focus.
Yeah, well, we tried. We tried to, get ahead, you with your quiche, me with my lunch, but it doesn't work out like that sometimes.
Here we are.
Listen, you and I have been doing this a long time, and we have seen a lot of scams. And I have a really soft spot for senior citizens because they are from a different generation, and they are, unfortunately, easy to take advantage of because they're very trusting. That's just the era that they came from. And we see it all the time, right?
We see a lot of scams, kind of recycled scams, keep coming up and up and up, but just, enough of a variation, enough of a twist that it's believable this time around.
Yeah.
And we've seen it even in our own, I've seen it in family members.
Yeah.
And it's so frustrating for me to see it in my own family member because, my goodness, I'm a consumer reporter. I have warned people, and I've said it over and over again, but these people are so good at what they do.
Well, I mean, that's why they get away with a lot of money, and it's very unfortunate. So we're talking today to Brian Watson. He's a retired special agent with the IRS Criminal Investigation Division, and he now works with an organization called ROSE. That's an acronym that stands for Resources and Outreach to Safeguard the Elderly. How are you today, Brian?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here.
In person. We have to mark this moment. We've done a lot of podcasts, but never had a guest in our studio with us. So this is a really fun first step.
Well over 100 episodes, and this is the first live guest in person.
So welcome.
It's a pleasure and an honor to be the first.
Oh, wow. Okay.
In person.
All right. So tell us a little bit about ROSE, and it really targets elderly in the form of what? I mean, how do you help senior citizens?
So we were started in 2021, so we just celebrated 2 years. Joyce Petrowski is our founder and CEO. She had a family member defrauded by one of these schemes, and she realized there were not a lot of nonprofits out there doing this type of work. And if there aren't enough. And what we want to do is in-person presentations to seniors where they live to tell them about these scams and how to avoid them. And then we want to go back in 6 months and remind them and refresh, tell them what, this is what is the new thing. So I met Joyce through my job as an IRS special agent. She interviewed me for her website. I was very impressed with what they did. I was eligible to retire. We had a little conversation. Before we knew it, I'm working for them part-time. And I'm hitting it from the media side.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of years as a PIO, Public Information Officer for IRS. So I know a lot of people. I know how to do radio and TV and print. So it was just sort of a natural transition for me to continue fighting the fraud that we did when I was with federal law enforcement.
Tell me a little bit about Rose, and as far as you said, you speak to senior citizens. Do you go to like assisted living facilities? How do you get that word out?
Absolutely, and that's what we do. So assisted living facilities, retirement communities, where we get that face-to-face, where we can have an hour-long presentation, and that includes questions as well. But just show them some slides, show them some examples, but you have a person, a live person. We've been mostly focusing on Maricopa County. We're expanding now. I'm doing one next month in Pima County. We're hoping to do some stuff in Yavapai as well. But the whole point is to do the face-to-face where they can ask questions, it could be interactive, and then they can tell their friends about it.
Are you finding that people are surprised when you're giving them this information, or are they like, oh, yeah, I've heard this before?
Yeah, I mean, it just depends. Some people are completely clueless, and they answer every phone call and click on every link on every email they get. And then there's some people who are ultra paranoid. They think every phone call is a scam. And there's everyone in between. But we have to keep repeating these things because these people keep falling for it. Like you mentioned in the opening, senior citizens come from a very trusting generation. They want to believe. When the phone rings, they answer it, and they're nice. And that's a deadly combination in terms of losing your money.
And they're lonely sometimes too, because the phone rings. Oh my goodness, I get to talk to somebody, and that's a problem.
Oh, it is. And I grew up answering the phone because when I lived at home, we didn't have call waiting or an answering machine, and it could be Dad calling and saying I'm going to be late for dinner. So I was trained to answer the phone. But like nowadays, I definitely screen all my calls unless it's someone I know. But yeah, the lonely thing, that's why the romance scam is such a big deal, where you literally have people who are a widow or a widower, and someone reaches out to them, through social media or through an email or a text message and starts this long play scam where they eventually take all their money.
And it's not instant. It's a long grooming process that could take sometimes weeks, but sometimes months. But there's a big payoff for these scammers out there. I mean, they're just buying their time.
Right. Just last week, I heard of a case down in Pima County where a lady lost over $500,000 with a romance scam.
Oh, my goodness.
And I met someone up in Yavapai County that lost about $700,000. Oh. She thought she was investing in Bitcoin, and she wasn't. And they took the whole thing, and she lost her house. And when I meet these people and I talk to them, the conventional wisdom is, they've lost their mind, they have dementia, they're senile. But in most cases, they're not. That's what's really surprised me in my 2 months on this job. The seniors that have fallen for these schemes are smart, they're educated, they're financially independent, they live on their own. A lot of them still volunteer or work, but they're going against professionals who are way better than them. And the key is you just don't want to get in the ring with them. You are in over your head. That's why don't answer the phone is the best advice I can give.
Yeah.
Besides the romance scams, what are some of the other ones that have kind of cropped back up recently? Or what are some of the recycled scams that are kind of having a little bit of a new tweak or twist to them that we're seeing more often?
So the grandparent scam just works. It works because it feeds on someone's emotion. My first week on the job.
Explain to our listeners how that works.
Okay, and perfect. And on my first week on the job, I actually met with my friend's father who fell for the grandparent scam last year. And I met with him and I just said, I'll never use your name or my friend's name. But he wanted to share his story so it didn't affect anyone else.
What happened?
He's at home, phone rings, young woman's voice said, Grandpa, I'm in trouble. Can you help me? His first thought was it was his granddaughter. The caller ID had a Phoenix area code, even though he lived in Tucson. And he knew his granddaughter lived in the Phoenix area. She said, we got pulled over. My friend had drugs in the car. I'm under arrest. I'm going to jail. It's chaotic. And they switch real quick to this guy pops on the phone who claims to be an attorney who says, I can keep your granddaughter out of prison this weekend if you get us $15,000. It happened real quick.
So a lot of people might say, how could somebody fall for that? But you're caught off guard as a senior citizen. You're not expecting this phone call. It's your grandchild. You're freaking out. So I'm assuming that the scammer posing as the grandchild doesn't really stay on the phone that long, because sooner or later, the grandparent's going to realize, I don't think this is my grandchild. Doesn't sound like her or him.
Yeah, they want to get you hooked. They want to get you panicked. They want to get you to an elevated level where you're not making quick decisions, and they don't want you to talk to anyone else. In that particular case I just mentioned, the, quote, attorney said there was a gag order in place. So that way the judge says you're not supposed to be talking to anybody else. Now, there's a little truth in there. There's a such thing as a gag order, but you're not he's not in trouble. So it was.
So in other words,
it happened quick.
Don't say anything to anybody, Mr. Grandparent, right?
Right. Or in some cases, they'll actually tell you to put your phone on Do Not Disturb, because they'll say you only get one phone call and you don't want to be interrupted. So there's a little bit of truth in there too.
So what happens after that then? Tell our listeners.
So what he did was he ended up wiring some money.
So
$15,000. And then as soon as he got off the phone, he knew he'd been duped. Because he's a smart man, he called his son, called the police, called the FBI. They called me at the IRS, but the money was gone.
Yeah.
And that's what happens. I mean, once the money is gone, we have this in our mind that every transaction is somehow traceable, or at some point we're going to get the bad guys. Do you ever actually get the bad guys?
It's tough. Well, yes, there are cases where federal law enforcement and local law enforcement are successful. But the problem is a lot of these people are using Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, so there's an anonymity. And then a lot of times...
Do seniors even know what Bitcoin is?
A lot of them do.
Really?
Of course. I mean, there's a lot of seniors who invest in Bitcoin or, the various cryptocurrencies. Or, a lot of times they'll ask for the gift cards. That's the other huge red flag of a scam. They want the gift cards. You buy it. You give them the numbers over the phone, and they instantly just move them and transfer them. It's gone.
Yeah.
But that's the key. They want the money quick, and they want to move it. And a lot of times, too, with this, say, the romance scam, if you don't have money, they'll use you as what's called a money mule. So you don't have any money, but they'll use you to move the money, and it gives them an extra layer of protection. So when law enforcement goes to get the money from this person, they say, oh, no, I was just transferring it for my boyfriend.
Wow.
So that's what a money mule is. They're actually committing crimes, but very few times are charged because there really is no intent, and they're actually being victimized as well.
Do you find that a lot of senior citizens do not tell their family members that I have been duped because A, they're embarrassed, and B, they know they're going to get yelled at by probably their family?
Well, and I actually just wrote an article for a newspaper down in down in Green Valley, and it covered just that topic. The age 70 and over only report 18% of being victimized by financial scams. It's the lowest amount. So as you get older, you lose more money because people have accumulated wealth, but they report less. And it begs the question you just asked, why? Yeah, if you told your kids that you've just lost $15,000, $500,000 in a financial scam, what are they going to do? They're going to take your checkbook away. They're going to take your credit cards away, and they may say you can't live on your own anymore. So that's my theory on why seniors will not report being victimized.
I totally agree, because they don't want to lose that independence. They're fine up until that one point where they realize that they were duped, and they're like, the car's going to go. They're going to put me in some kind of assisted living. I can't tell anybody. Wow, what a shame.
Can you talk through, though, why it still is important to report things?
Right. Well, because then we just mentioned a second ago, when we prosecute and are successful, the key is you want to report everything, because police and federal law enforcement can piece cases together. So, for instance, I mentioned the lady up in Yavapai County who lost $700,000. I ended up reaching out to my contacts in various agencies and found out the FBI had an active case on those people. So we combined those two. So it makes a bigger loss. Bigger loss means a bigger sentence, but also that transaction may be the one that completes the prosecution or actually finds the people, whether they're here in the United States or overseas. You have to report it, even if you're embarrassed. It's key to report it so we have accurate numbers as well.
Yeah, a lot of these scammers are out of the country, but what's the percentage? I mean, do we know how many are actually coming from in the country making these scam phone calls and taking advantage of people? Is there any way to kind of pinpoint that?
I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, and it's hard to tell where it's coming from. You know, like if for years I talked about the IRS phone scam that's been going on for 10 years.
Oh gosh,
a lot of that was coming out of India,
Mm-hmm.
and the federal government was successful in getting some of them, but then unfortunately you put some out of business and they're replaced real quickly, or they have people here who are copycats and do the same thing here in the United States.
Tell us about the IRS scam, how that works, so everybody knows.
So the IRS phone scam it's a phone scam. Someone calls up and says, this is the IRS, you owe money. You need to pay it now, or you're going to go to jail, or you're going to be sued, or you're going to lose your driver's license. And they ask for gift cards, and you pay it off.
I mean, it seems like that would be a red flag. I mean, why is the federal government asking me for a gift card or gift cards?
Well, and at one point they were asking for iTunes cards. That's even more ridiculous. But it's the same thing with all these scams. These scams have 3 parts. You're contacted one way or another: phone, email, text message, social media. Then there's a compelling reason to act, and it usually involves like fear, greed, emotion, something where you have to do it, and then they want the money. So the 3 thing, and then the overarching thing for all of it is urgency. You have to do it now. No reason to think about it.
And you're freaking out because
and it's the government.
It's the government,
right? And then let's say you're brave enough to hang up on that IRS phone scam. They will follow it up with a phone call, and the caller ID will say Phoenix Police Department, and the person on the other end of the line will say, yeah, this is Detective so-and-so with the Phoenix Police Department. The IRS just sent over the arrest warrant. I'm coming over to your house.
Oh, man.
Here's your last chance to pay.
I mean, they are good.
Yeah, these people are financial predators. Their prey is ordinary people, and they want to not physically kill them, but take all their money. You know, take
just
all your
financially
money.
just exploit them.
How much are we actually talking in losses? I mean, we've talked about some of the giant ones. A person lost 700,000, 500,000. What are the actual losses? What are we looking at?
Yeah, so I came with some numbers today. The 2022 Elder Fraud Report put together by the FBI. So victims over the age of 60. So that's currently the definition of an older American, 60 and over. $3.1 billion. So, and that was an 84% increase from the year before. There are more and more criminals getting into this. And when I first started reporting about scams in the late 90s, it was like identity theft, people going through your trash, and maybe some of those Nigerian emails. And they're very low level, poorly written. What we're dealing with now are organized criminal gangs that they're 100% what they do is these phone and email scams. They've migrated from street level crime to this going after Americans. And it's crazy. So average loss, $35,000. And then they've actually documented 5,000 victims that lost over $100,000. And then mind you, remember we just said seniors are reporting only about 20% of the fraud. So
that number's even higher.
Way higher.
Yeah.
We don't even know the true amount.
Right.
Because, like you said, victims are embarrassed, or they don't even know they've been ripped off, or they figure, what's the point? And then lastly, what we just covered, if I tell someone, my kids are going to take my financial independence and maybe even my own ability to live on my own.
Right. Wow.
I want to talk to you a little bit about your career, because you were with IRS Criminal Investigation for almost 3 decades before an early retirement, much deserved early retirement, because it was a busy career. Can you take us inside a couple interesting cases that you worked on that were things you were really proud of?
Oh, absolutely. And, our cases were very complex and they took a long time. And IRS special agents, we when we're feeling a little arrogant, and sometimes we'll say, I can do your job, you can't do mine, because a lot of people didn't even want to do our job because our cases could take years, and there, included a lot of bank accounts and things like that. So, one case that was an older one that I worked when I was still in San Jose, it was a telemarketing case. So, local sheriff's department was actually investigating some people for taking too much money from charities. They had some contracts, but it was high, 75 to 90%. But they couldn't find a crime. So it got referred to us, U.S. Attorney's Office brought us in. We did a surveillance on these telemarketers. So that's back in the day when they called and picked up paper checks. And we found the guy, he actually we did a surveillance. The guy threw a bunch of garbage in a dumpster on the surveillance, and we fished it out. It was all these hidden names we didn't know. Like,
so you were literally dumpster diving.
Dumpster diving.
I mean, we see that in the movies, but that's how it works sometimes.
And it was nice because the dumpster was empty because it was an abandoned building. It was very easy. So what we did, and this is a very IRS special agent thing to do, we issued subpoenas for all those bank records. And it turned out they were all belonged to my guy. But he used a dead person's name. It was his dead brother, a homeless person name, just made up some names. 30 bank accounts. So he wasn't happy with that 75 to 90% cut from the charities. He was siphoning off from them, depositing them into hidden accounts. But it was a case where both the husband and wife went to jail because they were ripping off charities, and then really their ultimate crime was not reporting it. You know, so that was a case that only IRS special agents could work.
So when you were with the IRS and you met somebody at a cocktail party or something, and what do you do, Brian? Oh, I work for the Internal Revenue Service. I mean, what's the reaction? Like, oh.
That is the reaction.
Oh.
They kind of just, their eyes light up and they go, oh, you don't know me. And then I just start explaining, what we do. And then after a while, they're like super impressed because it's very unique. Like when I did that middle school job survey thing where they try to figure out where you should gravitate to, there was no, IRS agent on there.
Right.
I wanted to be either an NFL quarterback or a jet pilot or maybe something like that. And then
IRS agent wasn't on the list.
No. And even in college, I wanted to work for one of the big 6 accounting firms. But then senior year in college, an IRS special agent came in and spoke to us, and he talked about how this was down in L.A., and he worked with the L.A. County Sheriff's Department, and they took down some drug dealers on the financial side. Because the big boys that run these drug organizations, they don't touch the drugs. They have underlings and multiple layers. But they went after the drug kingpins from the financial side, and I was like, wow, that's what I want to do. I was always intrigued by law enforcement, but never really thought of myself working as a street cop.
Yeah.
So it was a perfect combination.
What's your degree in? Accounting?
Yeah, it's business economics.
Okay.
I went to UCLA. We actually don't have accounting degrees at UCLA.
Really?
So the business economics, you're an econ major who took a lot of accounting classes.
Wow.
And I'm a CPA.
Okay.
I passed the exam, couldn't do it again.
What's the old joke? An accountant that carries a gun?
That's it. Your worst nightmare, an accountant with a gun. I actually have a T-shirt that says that.
Oh gosh.
It's like,
oh boy. Well, listen, you've got your work cut out for you. You've got a lot of experience from the Internal Revenue Service, and like I said, you've got a lot to do with resources and outreach to safeguard the elderly. That stands for ROSE. I think it's a great organization, and if people want to find out more about it, maybe they want you as a speaker or whatever, how do they find out more about ROSE?
So please go to our website. It's a great website, roseadvocacy.org, roseadvocacy.org, and on the very landing page, the front page, there's a blue box. You can click on that blue box and sign up for our mailing list. And I just read the one for that just came out. All we need is your name and an email, and you'll get the latest scams. It's free. You can share it with your friends, get other people to sign up. But no, you can contact us as well, and we can arrange to have someone talk to a group because we do churches.
Yeah.
We're looking for any sort of, especially big events.
Yeah.
I like to partner with other law enforcement agencies and kind of team up and get a bigger audience, and then we have the power of their social media as well. But that's what we'd like to do. And then on our website, we also have a lot of videos and articles and links about the various scams. So there's scams on videos on postal scams, Social Security scams, and things like that. But it's kind of a one-stop shop. When I was an IRS special agent, I learned things about scams by going to this website because Joyce, our CEO and founder, she's great at finding really smart people that want to help us. So we have a great board of directors and advisory committee who are like cyber experts and attorneys and people who bring very unique skills to the table.
Well, listen, very interesting conversation, and hopefully, this is never going to go away. All we can do is educate folks out there and just get it out there as often and as frequently as we
wave
can.
that red flag all the time. Warning signs, warning signs.
Yes, and hopefully we can cut down on it, but it's going to be around forever. And it's always changing. I don't even want to get into it now, but artificial intelligence, that's going to work really, really well with the grandparent scam, because it already has. It's going to sound like your grandson or your grandchild.
We've already shown our viewers how they can do it with free versions, let alone the really good ones.
That is crazy. Hey, Brian, thanks so much for being on the On Your Side podcast. And next time we're talking money or IRS, we're going to have you on again, okay?
I would love it. Thanks, Gary. Thanks, Susan.
Thank you.
The On Your Side podcast is produced by Brad Denny. Our audio engineer and editor is Todd Martin. Segment producer is Colin Stanton. And I'm Gary Harper.
And I'm Susan Campbell. If you have a problem you can't resolve, maybe we can. Send us a message through azfamily.com or our AZ Family mobile app. Look for the On Your Side section and leave us a message. Thanks so much for listening to the On Your Side podcast. And if you like it, leave us a review. We'll see you next week.
On Your Side is on Good Morning Arizona every weekday morning at 6:45 and 7 o'clock, and every weekday evening on Good Evening Arizona at 4 and 5 o'clock. You can also catch it on Arizona's Family News at 9 on 3TV every weeknight.